to start.
Wait for the choir to start.
Okay, it is almost 2:00. We will call to order our regular meeting of council and start by just appreciating that we are able to gather today on the unceded territories of the Sishat and Hoopachesit First Nations. We have an agenda in front of us. Are there any late items to be added from council? Seeing none, any late items from the corporate officer?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to move approval of our agenda?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. All in favor? Carried. And we have minutes from the special meeting held at 1 p.m. and the regular meeting of council held at 2 p.m. on May 24th, 2022, and the special meeting held at 10 a.m. on June 6th, 2022. Move to adopt by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments or questions on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. And that brings us to public input period, which is an opportunity for members of the public to address council on topics of relevance to City Council. A maximum of 4 speakers for up to 3 minutes each can be accommodated. Would anybody like to speak today? Come on forward. And when you come to the mic, if you don't mind just introducing yourself with your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Richard Andrew. Address 3219 6th Avenue. Port Alberni here, just around the corner. I'd just like to bring to your attention an ongoing problem that has been plaguing us and our little community over here for 2.5 years. There's a house directly behind us on 3218 7th Avenue that's been up on moving blocks, approximately 8 feet into the air, with an open excavation with steep sides, which fills with water in the rain, and or I should say it probably gets about 16 to 18 inches rain in water in the excavation, which is a danger. I've addressed the problems, or I've presented the problems to the bylaw officers and the building department over the last 2.5 years. And yourself, I sent you an email. About 1.5 years ago, I sent you an email, CC'd the building inspector, and the excavation had probably 20 inches of water in it, and there was no restraining barriers, safety barriers, or anything like that. After I sent the email to yourself and the building inspector, I was pleased to see the next morning there was some caution tape put around the actual house itself. And that's been the last activity on the property in 2 years. So this property's been completely at a standstill for over 2 years. It's right across the road from the park up here, Gyro Park, where the children play and all that. And I think the city has meetings in the buildings there, and people drive by every day. And it's just, to us, it's an ignored situation, which has been very stressful to my wife and myself and the neighborhood. There's an old gentleman that lives on the uphill side of that property that actually has excavated material from the excavation of that house pushing into his yard. So I guess I'm the only one that's been speaking up on behalf of the neighbors in this area and this situation. So I'm just here to bring that up, and there's actually I've been getting a lot of positive help with this issue through the building department here, and they're sort of on it, but it seems it's people have been addressing it before, and then it falls to the wayside and nothing's happened. And 2.5 years is a long time for a house to be up on building blocking with an open excavation underneath it. There's no fencing, and so we're very concerned and very frustrated. So that's what I got to say.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you bringing it to us, and appreciate the emails as well. I know that our staff are aware, and we as council don't probably have the background on where that's at operationally. So we'll leave it to our staff at this point to work it through, and we'll probably ask for an update at our next meeting.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there other members of the public who would like to speak today? Seeing none. No delegations today and no unfinished business, so we'll move on to staff reports. Item number 1 is accounts. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated June 13, 2022 be received and checks numbering 150601 to 150704 inclusive and payments of accounts totaling $1,352,633.79 be approved.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Washington and seconded by Councillor Poon. All in favor? Carried. Okay, item number 2 from the Director of Engineering and Public Works, award of General Municipal Engineering Services. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is this thing on? Maybe it's just my voice. Perfect. Before council is a report recommending award of general municipal engineering services to Coors and Associates Engineering. The city received 4 submissions for services where the request for proposal evaluated the project team, their experience, performance, previous projects they'd been on, standard approach to projects, and the cost compared between the 4 submissions. Annual fees would depend on the capital program, but we are expected to be approximately $400,000 per year, which are currently included in the financial plan, so this isn't an increased cost. The process we followed and the 3-year contract are comparable to other municipalities, as municipalities commonly hire professional services related to municipal engineering. If there are any questions, I am here to answer them.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, so I understood from the report that this is just about enabling us to effectively get better service than we already get by signing on with one specific company. Is that the general?
Better and quicker, yes.
Better and quicker, okay.
Instead of going to a different consultant and going through the RFP process for every single capital project, you hire someone for multiple years and then you have that consistent service. So they can start projects quicker, you can work with them, as well as for a consulting firm like Coors, where they have a smaller firm, they can staff up need be because they'll know what the next 3 years of work looks like. So that helps give us a better service as well.
Okay, and Coors is a company that we work with frequently as it is already.
We have for, I think, up to 10 years now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Haggard.
He just answered my question. I just wanted to explain to the public what this was about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Paulson.
And just to confirm, the fail-safe here is it's only a limited time contract, and then it would go back for bid process after that. Like the fail-safe is a 3-year deal. Yeah.
Exactly, and to build on that as well is other municipalities, sometimes they'll have longer, like 5 or 10 year contracts. Then when they renew it, they don't have experience with other applicants, so they keep awarding it to the same consultants. In this contract, we actually leave ourselves the right to do other engineering services ourselves or hire someone else when we want to. So if we see someone else, like someone else on this list or someone who wants to provide us service, we can hire them for a job here and there and see if they provide as good a service as Coors.
Councillor Corbeil.
Rob, I have 2 questions. The first one, I guess, is approximately how much did we spend in the past year on engineering services? I know we paid this company a couple $100,000. Were there other engineering firms that we hired last year?
There are, and I would say myself, when I started here, I looked at our previous financial statements, and the largest one that popped out to me was Associated Engineering, because they are working on our lagoon. And I think in 2019, it might have been, they had $1.2 million in fees, but I'll defer to our finance director, current acting CAO, to confirm that.
And the second question, just so I'm clear, $400,000 is based on the budgeted projects we've got right now. If there happen to be more projects, that cost could go up. Is that correct?
Exactly, and in the 5-year capital program where we've identified construction of a project, it includes these engineering fees.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, did you have any additional information to provide on what we have spent?
Madam Mayor, I do have a few examples that I can share today, and the Director of Engineering did highlight Associated. And in the past year, in 2021, there was $875,000 spent on that consulting engineer. Of course, this is rather convenient because the Sophie report is on the agenda today, so good timing. And John Manson, also another consulting engineer, that was $53,000. And if we look at McGill Engineering and Associates, that was $42,000 this year. So there's various professional engineers or consultants that we use throughout the year, depending on the skill set that we require at the city.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Corbeil, would you like to read this motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council award RFP number 005-22, General Municipal Engineering Services to Coors and Associates Engineering Limited for a term of 3 years commencing June 1st, 2022 through to May 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any additional comments on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Okay. And item number 3 from the Director of Engineering and Public Works, financial plan amendment and award of proposal for Argyle Sewer Force Main.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The sewer force main from Argyle Pump Station underneath the Somas River to the wastewater treatment facility over on the other side of the estuary broke last summer. We fixed it and built a bypass to another force main should a break occur again. At that time, we also hired an engineering firm, Coors, to design replacements for that main as well as another one which was built within a year, and they're both steel mains. So they are at the end of their useful life. No sooner had we started the engineering design for that and the Argyle force main broke again in another location. And at this time we determined it was irreparable, so we had to shut off that main and start using that bypass we had fortuitously built that summer. And it now goes to the Wallace Street force main. That force main, however, doesn't have unlimited capacity, so we are seeing basically instead of releasing raw sewage into the Somas, we are releasing more raw sewage now at our Argyle force main pump station, which is at the bottom of Argyle. So environmentally and for human contact, it's a much better scenario, but still it's not ideal. So we have started this design, and with the second break, we sped up that design, recognizing we needed to get this built as soon as possible. And we were able to tender this project this spring. And with that tendering, we only had one submission that was submitted. And the engineering department did determine that the best method for replacement was considering in costs, environmental impacts, social and economic impacts to the Somas estuary, as well as provincial and federal approvals, which can take quite a bit of time for these things, was the directional drilling, the process that we have tendered. Due to the urgent need for this replacement and the likelihood that retendering would not result in lower prices, we are recommending award to Industria with amendments to the 5-year financial plan for the additional funding as outlined in the report to council. The budget that we had allotted for this was almost half of what we need. And the factors involved with that, as I'm sure this council and many others have heard many times, is with the global economy, impacts of COVID and everything else, we see price escalation going up in ways we have never seen before. And on top of that, for directional drilling, we actually see with other projects happening in the province right now that most of the directional drillers are more busy than they want to be. So we are kind of stuck in a situation where there's urgent work we need done, and yet we are not going to see lower pricing. So we do recommend award at this time, and the budget amendments that are outlined in the report as well. I'm here for any questions, should council have them.
Councillor Paulson.
I have a couple questions, actually. The first question is the single person or single company that replied to the RFP. Maybe you could just give us a little insight. I know the directional drilling and stuff is really commonplace in the prairies with regards to oil and gas, but how many companies like that are there in our vicinity of Vancouver Island or the lower mainland that actually can do this kind of work? And I wonder why there wasn't more than one proponent if there's 3 or 4 companies. And no, I can't remember the second one. Keep going.
I would say, to my knowledge, there's 4 or 5 companies in the lower mainland. I don't know of any on the island that do it. There may be. In looking at what a lot of them are doing is the Trans Mountain Pipeline right now, if you see all that work going on between Vancouver and Merritt, If you stop and look, there is a lot of directional drilling, and there are other projects obviously as well going on that have taken up a lot of this resource. So we're asking for directional drilling right when directional drilling, I think, is the busiest it's been in this province right now.
And my second question jumped into my head and then jumped out again. It must be
It'll
really
come back to
important.
So, due to the Trans Mountain generally, you're thinking that if we were to retender, even to retender on an extended timeline, and I know that this project is sensitive in terms of time, but for a project of this scope and this price range, it is difficult to move forward when it's significantly over, the cost that we anticipated and with only one bid. But you feel, based on just the inability, typically inability to find people for this type of work with other projects going on, that we would not get a lower bid if we retendered, say, for next year?
We don't believe we would. And we have, our consultant reached out to some other contractors who they thought would be interested, just asked about their availability, and they were very busy, and they talked about the price, and to them, given how busy everyone is, that is not an unreasonable price right now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Solda?
Yeah, so here I am. My question to you is, if we, just hypothetically, if we waited a year, what's the worst case scenario with this, if we didn't do the project, could happen?
Worst case scenarios we're seeing right now is instead of, I don't want to put a number out there, but we're seeing a significant increase in the release of raw sewage to our harbor right now.
Okay.
And on top of that is, as we're looking at this main, which is broken twice, we have this other main, Josephine, which is built literally 1 year later by the same company in the same conditions, and it's a ticking time bomb as well. And so worst case scenario is that breaks, and then we're trying to deal with only 3 force mains when we need 5. And that one in particular is farther up the SOMAS, and we're looking at right now an emergency response, what that would look like, trying to bypass that and not releasing into the SOMAS. So I understand the constraints and the concern with the costs at this time and trying to delay it or defer it until next year, but the risk is, again, with escalating costs, that we would see the same price. And with projects like Trans Mountain, which are going to be going on as we see going for the next year or even the year after, we might not see better prices. So if this were a project we could wait for 3 or 4 years, I'd probably recommend we wait, even though we may see 10-20% increase in costs going up annually.
So environmentally, it's not a good move to wait, is that?
No,
where
it's
we're going?
not.
It could cost a lot more.
It would, and we are required to report our combined sewer, our raw sewage releases, and we would see a significant increase in those releases occurring over this next year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson?
I know what it was. This project has been talked about for a while, and we had a previous motion to approve, I think it was 1.9 million, plus pre-purchasing about $400,000 worth of a pipeline. Did we do that pre-purchasing, cost saving?
One of the councillors, when we talked about pre-purchasing, had mentioned about, don't contractors get a better price? And we talked a little bit about that. And after we got approval from council, we talked to a couple contractors and our consultant, and given that we're going to tender this so quickly, like weeks, we decided that we would leave it to the contractor to do. And it was partially because of that excellent point that a councillor brought up, but also delivery time. When the city goes and orders pipe that we only order every 10 or 20 years, we're low on the totem pole for the pipe supplier. But if a contractor who orders it every 2 weeks orders it, they get the material a lot quicker.
Councillor Haggard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment, I think seeing bids come in at double what we budget is not abnormal these days. Being on other boards and committees, this seems to be quite normal right now. Things are coming in at twice the price. So I know it's a lot of money, but in regards to the environment, I think we have no other choice but to do it now. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Okay. Is there, I know that this is the suggested best route forward. Is there any alternative project scope to look at, or is this our only path forward?
We did talk with the the contractor about potential cost savings. And given the risks, because we're working in the estuary and the weather that we've seen this year, we didn't find any cost savings that we could agree to that didn't increase our risk at a far higher magnitude. So we will work with the contractor during the project to try to make cost savings happen. But there wasn't anything that we could actually do to the contract or the project to try to reduce those costs at this time.
Okay, thank you. I agree with council that, you know, this is a critical project. It needs to move forward, and I understand it needs to move forward on this timeline as well. I agree that, you know, this type of cost overrun is not uncommon right now, but that also doesn't make it doable necessarily all of the time. So I think in this case, we have to move forward. This is a critical project, but we need to start looking at what kind of bigger changes are we going to make to accommodate if everything comes in double what we budget. We just can't actually move forward on projects like that. So yeah, so, you know, we have to start, obviously our asset management plan becomes, you know, even more critical to really getting an understanding of where we're at and what we're going to be able to do moving forward. I just wanted to take a moment because it's been quite a while since we had the report that you brought, Rob, on the combined sewer overflows and separating storm and sewer. And I just want to say that this just, you know, brings even more attention to the importance of that work that we did commit to. And I think we committed to work for starting next year to like 1.2 million a year, or 1.2 million a year, something very close to that. So I think that, again, environmentally, it's really critical that we start getting ahead on this work. And I know that we've got a grant application coming forward that staff is going to be asking council to support to expedite some of that work in the coming year. Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question, Madam Mayor, regarding other projects. We're taking some money out of the Water Infrastructure Reserve Fund.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So will that affect any other major projects that will be happening?
That will not. As well as to one of the points is where we're getting funding from this is taking it from another project, recognizing that we're in essence canceling or deferring another project to be able to pay for this one, which to the asset management is going to be very important in the future in pricing these projects given our current climate. And even talking to contractors where you ask for a price 6 months from now and they will refuse because they don't know what the price of gas is or labor or anything these days.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Solda, would you like to read the motions?
Okay, excuse me. Madam Mayor, I move that the council direct staff to amend the City of Port Alberni 2022-26 Financial Plan Bylaw Number 5045, 2022 as follows. What, are we doing them 1, 2? Okay.
You want to do 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll read these separately.
Okay, thank you. Number 1, delay the Harbor Road Trunk Sewer Replacement Project expenditure of $300,000 in 2022 and $300,000 in 2023 to 2024, $600,000 plus inflationary provisions. That was a nice mouthful. And relocate $600,000 to the Argyle Sewer Force Main Project, Somas River Crossing in 2022. 2, reallocate $437,930 of underspent funding from Phase 3 and 4 of the Coal Creek Sewer Separation Project, project numbers 20090, 21038, 21037, and 21044 to Argyle Sewer Force Main Project Somas River Crossing in 2022. 3, provide $732.70 from the Water Infrastructure Reserve Fund to the Argyle Sewer Force Main Project Somas River Crossing in the year 2022.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any final comments or questions on this piece?
Yep.
Oh, Councillor Corbeil.
Just a question for Rob. This Harbor Road trunk sewer replacement, has that been tendered yet?
No, it hasn't. It wasn't planned to be started until probably the end of this year with design. One of the issues too is 2 years ago we flushed that main and we found an amazing amount of gravel in it for some reason. And so it's actually, we've been able to buy us some time capacity-wise, and we're just going to check that this fall again and make sure that isn't filled up with gravel again for some reason.
Thank you. So moved and seconded. Seeing no more comments or questions, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And if you want to read B, Councillor Solda?
And B, Madam Mayor, I move that council award RFP number 006-22 Argyle Sanitary Force Main Somes River Crossing to Industria Construction Corporation in the amount of $2,922,000. Well, let's just, thank you, $483.77 excluding GST.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any final questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rob. And item number 4 from the Director of Finance, Statement of Financial Information. Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So annually, the Statement of Financial Information has to be completed by June 30th of each year. This includes the remuneration for council, employees that have remuneration over $75,000, and suppliers that are paid more than $25,000 each year. And this will be submitted to the province if council supports the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Corbeil, would you like to read the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that council approve the statements and schedules included in the Statement of Financial Information for 2021, prepared to comply with the Financial Information Act as outlined in the report from the Director of Finance dated June 6, 2022.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any questions, comments? Seeing none. On the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And item number 5 from the Director of Finance, 2021 Development Cost Charges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is also an annual report that is required by the province. This is for the development cost charges, obviously, and it provides any information as far as any DCCs that were collected in the year, any DCCs that were expended, any DCCs that were committed to, and also the interests that are earned on DCCs, along with any waivers that are provided for any DCCs throughout the year. So this is just a summary after our annual audit that is provided to council and then approved to be included in our reporting.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Poon.
Thank you. How do our DCCs compare to other communities?
Madam Mayor, the DCC bylaw was adopted in 2010 or 2011, so it's one of those bylaws that we obviously need to have a look at, and we are on the lower end for DCCs on the island, and I think throughout BC.
Thank you. I know that we do have a report coming forward on building permit fees, but I don't think that's intended to include a DCC review, so something that definitely could be looked at. Any other questions? I'm just wondering, are there any DCC funds that could be reallocated? I know we reallocated already for a project like the Force Main, but at what point do we consider using our DCC funds for some of this infrastructure work?
Madam Mayor, DCCs are collected for projects that are identified, so if we have a project that's identified, then we can earmark those DCC funds towards that project. So I'm not sure if this project was, the Director of Engineering isn't here, but we looked at what was it. But if the Director of Engineering could provide, just an update or an example.
The project for the Force Main isn't on this project. That's just a life cycle replacement cost, whereas DCCs are related to growth, so an upsizing of that main would be proportionally applicable if it was a named project. Which, when talking about updating the DCCs, there's quite a few steps to go towards that, where you need either strategies or master plans for your transportation, storm, sanitary, and water systems, which we need to start doing over the next few years so that then we can do a DCC bylaw, because all those master plans identify these specific projects And you need those for transparency for the community as well as council to be able to support that. So it is definitely something to consider in the future.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Okay, Councillor Poon, would you like to read the motion?
Yes, I'll move that council receive the report of the Director of Finance dated June 6, 2022, entitled 2021 Development Cost Charges.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no more questions or comments, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And on to bylaws. Item number 1 from the Manager of Planning, proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 5450 Greenard Street. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. Before you today is a consideration of a zoning map bylaw amendment, number 5056. Oh, there we go. I will provide you with a quick overview of this application to rezone a portion of these lands from R1 single family to R3 small lot single family residential. These are 2 lots outlined in the yellow that form the subject properties. Currently, these lands are designated as residential in our official community plan. The lots are split zones, so we have an existing parks and open space zoning that will remain, and then the portion of the lands that is R1 is being considered to be rezoned to R3 small lot single family. The 2 lots will be consolidated and re-subdivided into 5 lots through the subdivision process, which is underway. And that as a outcome of the subdivision, there'll be a preliminary layout review, a PLR, which will identify environmental, geotechnical, and servicing requirements. In this component, that we will consider the reports that have been submitted to date that are part of this application. And prior to adoption of this zoning map amendment, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure is required to authorize. Before you is the zoning classification showing the P2 and the existing R1 zoning and the subject lands that is the subject of this proposed application for the zoning bylaw amendment. Before you is the site plan that is part of the subdivision that we are considering. Within this, you'll see 5 lots, and within this, you will see that the total site area is approximately 4,978 square meters, or 53,583 square feet. The frontages of these lots all meet the R3 zoning. They are 10 meters or greater. The R1 zoning is 15 meters. What this proposed development does is the ability to create 3 more lots for small lot housing, which meets a housing need within the community. It is surrounded by other existing R1, R2, R3 zones, so it is compatible with the surrounding area. And you'll note on this map, you'll see 2 colored lines. One is a blue line, which is the top of bank, and the red line is the 15-meter setback, which is required under Section 1.0 of our official community plan for environmental setbacks and our zoning bylaw. And these have been reviewed by a qualified environmental professional who has confirmed that the 15-meter is sufficient within the environmental considerations. As we move forward with this, there will be requirements to have a Section 219 registered on title, which will also require that as we move forward with construction, that these builders will have to consult with the geotech to ensure that they follow the proper construction procedures as outlined in the reports. So this is all suitable within our OCP and our zoning bylaw requirements. So before you, council has options. With this one, because it is consistent with the official community plan with our designation, council has the ability under 464 of the Local Government Act to waive the public hearing, and staff would just provide notice as outlined in section 467 of the Local Government Act prior to consideration of the readings. Council can provide alternative direction, and council can choose not to proceed. Staff is recommending that we move forward with the introduction of the bylaws for first and second reading, and that council consider waiving the public hearing for the proposed zoning map amendment, and direct staff to move forward with a public notice as per section 467 of the LGA. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from council? Are there questions specifically about waiving the public hearing? Because that is something, so I believe that's a newer allowance, and I don't think we've really used it yet. So I'm just wondering if council is comfortable with that piece of the recommendation, or if anyone wants to understand more about when we're allowed and when we're not allowed to waive public hearings. Councillor Solda.
I don't know, with this scope of a project, Madam Mayor, I would like to have a public meeting, because the reason is because there's a lot of neighbors around in that, and I think they have a right to know what's going on and why, and it would be great to get more information on waiving a public meeting, so the public understands that too.
Twyla.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to add, council may recall that you did exercise waiving public hearings on 2 occasions when we were in COVID, and we did that and then did hold hearings electronically. In this case, just for clarity, it doesn't eliminate the residents in the area being made aware of the application. What it does do is just forgoes the formal public hearing. Residents still they will receive notice within that 75-meter radius. They have an opportunity to provide feedback, just not in the hearing format.
So feedback would be just written feedback that would be included then when we consider the final readings.
Correct.
Okay. We must have had COVID brain fog when we waived that public hearing. Thank you. Zoom meetings. Okay. Sorry, Marianne, if you had an additional comment, and then I'll go to Councillor
Thank you, Madam
Washington.
Mayor. I just want to clarify too, there is a sign on the site, and so we can get comments coming in, and to date, we've had no comments from the public on this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to ask, how long has the sign been there, so the neighbors have seen it?
The sign has been up since the application was made. It has to be put up right after the application is done, so within, I'm going to say, 10-day period. So it's been up for a couple months now.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
If I could ask, what's the maximum size buildings that could be put on these properties? There's like a ratio here of maximum floor area ratio 0.5. Is that half of the, I guess, the 6,458 square feet?
So I'll just outline, if you go up to in your report, there's a little table, and it talks about the site coverage that you can have.
Mm-hmm.
And so the site coverage is basically 50% of the lot. So that is your floor plate itself. And then you would take the percentage of 0.5 from the total site.
Which is half of 6,458, is that not correct?
Correct, yeah.
But then that's not per lot. That's like,
Oh.
do you have a 3,000 square foot home
No.
on these little things?
No, so let's go back to what you have on there is let's call it 3,700 square feet. So you can build half of that on a site coverage, which would give you 1,800 roughly square feet as a 4 plate. And then you can go up 2.5 stories. So that would roughly be, let's call it just under 3,000. Yeah. So the point of the small lot, single family, is to build a smaller house on a smaller lot that will fit into an area where you would have like an R1, you can build a much larger house. The idea of the R3 is to build a smaller proportion house.
Okay.
It fits a certain need within the community.
For sure. Okay. Any additional questions? Councillor Poon, would you like to read the motions?
Yes. I'll move that zoning map amendment number 51, 5450 Greenard Street, Hopkins, bylaw number 5056 be now introduced and read for a first time.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Washington. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Carried.
I'll move that zoning map amendment number 51, 5450 Greenard Street, Hopkins, bylaw number 5056 be read a second time.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Washington. Seeing no comments or questions on the motion, all in favor? Carried. None opposed.
I'll move that council waive the public hearing for proposed zoning map amendment number 51, 5450 Greenard Street, Hopkins, bylaw number 5056, in accordance with section 464, subsection 2 of the Local Government Act, as the proposed amendment aligns with the official community plan designations, and direct staff to provide public notice in accordance with section 467 of the LGA prior to consideration of further readings of the bylaw.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Washington. Any final comments on this piece? Seeing none on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Any opposed? Sorry, I meant to say any opposed before I said carried, but thank you. One opposed. Thanks very much. I'll move on to item number 2 from the development planner, proposed OCP and zoning bylaw amendments for 4738 Athol Street.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have a development application here for your consideration today at 4738 Athol Street. And the applicant is Kim Ray of Hookham Holdings, and he is in the audience here today as well as his architect who designed the building as well. They are requesting, the application is requesting amendments to the official community plan and the zoning bylaw to enable a multifamily infill development at the property. The amendment they're proposing to the official community plan would be amending bylaw 5046, and it would change the land use designation of the property from residential to multifamily residential, as well as add the property to the multifamily development permit area number 1. Zoning bylaw amendment 5047 would add a new zone to the zoning bylaw for this development. It would be a new comprehensive development zone, number 2. And zoning bylaw amendment 5048 would change the zoning map to change the zone of the property from what it is now, which is R1 single family residential, to the new comprehensive development zone number 2 that is created specifically for this project. Here's an ortho photo showing the location of the property between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue. You can see that it's located at the intersection of it's located at the intersection of a laneway to the rear of the property, as well as there's residential neighborhoods sort of to the north, as well as some multifamily to the south along with Argyle Street. Here's a sky view taken from Google Earth, which shows a conceptual design of the building by the architect. Within the context of the neighborhood itself, you can see the King George Apartments to the north in the back there, that's the southwest. And then you also see the neighboring houses on Athol Street as well. And there's a blue arrow pointing to the conceptual design of the development. And here's another view, conceptual 3D model that also just puts the building within its context with the road and the laneway and neighboring houses, so you get a sense of the development that's being proposed. This would be a single building on the property with 6 dwelling units contained within it. That's 2 1-bedroom units, 3 2-bedroom units, and 1 3-bedroom unit. So it's a mix of dwelling units within this building, and it would be residential rental tenure only. And so the rental only tenure would be enforced by the zoning bylaw, which the city is allowed to enforce with its zoning powers in the Local Government Act. And of course, as we mentioned, this requires an amendment to the official community plan for the land use, as well as amendments to the OCP for that new comprehensive development zone. And when it comes to redesignating multifamily lands, the OCP does have some criteria under section 4.3.4, has these three criteria for council to consider when redesignating those lands as multifamily. And this is the exact text that's in the OCP, and I'm just going to read it out. So those lands should be within walking distance, approximately 800 meters, of commercial, recreational, public or institutional nodes or community scale parks. The lands being considered for redesignation to multifamily should also be located on or in proximity to major collectors or arterial roads in order to reduce traffic impacts on those local roads. And an adequate transition between lower density housing and compatibility with adjacent land uses must be provided. And I'll go through each of these on the following slides with some images. So the first criteria speaks to the walkability and where the development is located within the community. And this map shows in red the commercial land use within Uptown, and in green we're showing the parks and trails. And you can see the property, the orange dot in the center of that circle, is within a 5-minute walk of the Uptown commercial area and the shops on around 3rd Avenue in Argyle. It's also less than 5 minutes walk to Gyro Park and the Dry Creek trails. And in the City of Port Alberni's active transportation plan, the property is also within the commercial walkshed of the Southport neighborhood, or the Uptown commercial area to be specific. So it is a walkable location. In terms of its proximity to the roadways, the property is located close to Argyle Street. It's approximately 1 block north of Argyle. It's also near 3rd Avenue and 4th Avenue, and it's not too far from 10th Avenue, which is also an arterial roadway, so it meets that criteria for being located to major roadways. And the third criteria is the compatibility of the land use with surrounding uses, and also providing a transition from the higher density use, say of the multifamily, with the lower density use of surrounding properties. And this, staff consider this application to meet this criteria in the OCP as well, because the neighborhood contains a mix of uses. It's on the edge of a commercial area, within close proximity to multifamily developments, single-family homes with suites, and commercial businesses, as you can see on the map in the presentation. The property is within 20 meters of the King George Apartments, which is a large multifamily development. The official community plan, under the policies that speak towards multifamily development, recognize that multifamily housing will be located within established single-family residential neighborhoods or adjacent to them. As well, in terms of the land use itself and the densities, the existing residential lands that you can see in light yellow allow a maximum of 2 dwelling units, and this development would be limited to 6 units. And so staff consider the transition between these different densities to be acceptable and to meet this criteria. As for the comprehensive development zone, which is the subject of the zoning bylaw amendments, again, this is the zone that would be created specifically for this development. I just want to go over some of the features of that zone that are noteworthy and should be considered. Within that CD2 zone, there would be restrictions that allow only rental, multifamily rentals. The lot area is smaller than other residential zones and at a higher density than other residential zones. The lot coverage, so the amount of the lot that the building can cover, is higher than some other residential zones, and this is going by the definition in the zoning bylaw of what coverage is. The on-site parking would be reduced to 1 stall per dwelling, and 2 of those stalls that are on-site would allow for small cars. They would be small car spaces. And the usable open space that we always see in multifamily developments, in this case, the zoning would allow them to provide all that open space in terms of balconies, patios, and a rooftop common area for residents. And as you can see on this image, this is a height comparison provided by the architect. It just shows the building they're proposing in relation to the neighboring properties. And the common area, where you can see the people standing in this concept, that roof line is 11 meters. And then the stairwell structure that allows access to the roof goes up to about 13.7, which is comparable to our RM3 zone, which allows a maximum of 14 meters. But this just gives you a good sense of how it fits within the context of the neighboring properties. And the applicant's architect has also provided a shadow analysis, and the date chosen for this analysis is the summer solstice. And on your left, you can see what the property would look like in the summer at about 10 a.m. And then as you move from left to right, you can see how the shadows move. 12 p.m. and then 3 p.m. in the afternoon on the far right. And this is important to consider, and it's something we show in our presentation intentionally, just to show that when you're doing infill development, with large buildings, you often do get cast shadows. And this just shows that the property to the east, neighboring, would be affected by shadows at some parts of the afternoon. Here is a cross-section of the development, or a profile view, where you can get a better sense of what it looks like on the property front to back. So on the left side of the image, you see Athol Street, and then you can see the front of the building. And in the rear, you can see off the laneway, there's parking at the back, and this parking actually would go underneath the building. And then on the top, there would be a rooftop common area, and then you can see that stairwell structure that goes up to a bit of a higher height. And here's a conceptual landscape plan, just a really quick conceptual image showing the parking at the back and then some of the landscaping that would be in place around the sides and the front of the development. And so whenever council is to consider an amendment to the official community plan, the local government requires that the city provide an additional opportunity for feedback from anyone whose interests might be affected by the development. So in this case, staff followed the city's development application notice bylaw, and we sent notices out to all residents and occupants of property within 75 meters of 4738 Athol Street, and then gave them an opportunity to contact us either in person or by phone or by email, and let us know if they had any concerns or supports, for the development. And there was a mix of support and concern. There was support for a higher density and the location of the development in multifamily housing. But the main concerns that we received were about, again, how dense the development was, the height of the building, the potential for shadows, potential loss of privacy that people perceived, an increased vehicle traffic, and some people had concerns about potential changes to the character of the neighborhood. And staff are supporting this development because it meets the policy for redesignation of multifamily lands in the official community plan, as well as addressing the needs for rental housing identified by the Alberni Valley Housing Needs Assessment. And our recommendation today is that council provide first reading to the amending bylaws. That's amending bylaw 5046, bylaw 5047, and bylaw 5048. And that council also provides second reading for those amending bylaws. And then the applicant also be considered before final adoption, that the applicant be required to submit construction design and estimate for the completion of off-site works, that they be required to submit a stormwater management plan, a geotechnical report, and a site grading plan. And that's before final adoption. And that the amending bylaws be advanced to a public hearing on Monday, July 11th at 6 p.m. And I'll be happy to answer any questions council has. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The type of housing, is it low-cost housing, regular high-end
Madam Mayor, this
market? Yeah.
this would be market housing.
Okay.
That's correct.
The reason for my question is that everybody has two cars these days. That's my only concern with the parking, because you could allow one in and then there'd be one on the street, and 6 times 2, I'm just more concerned about the parking on the street and, the neighborhood and having people park in front of my house and not. And the second thing, obviously there's gonna be an upgrade to water and sewer, and that will be at the applicant's cost. We only go to the curb, and then they do.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That's
Okay,
it.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, Madam Mayor, yeah, that is correct. And so our engineering department has provided an engineering servicing report for the development, and they would be required to cover the cost of infrastructure improvements, and that will include upgrades to the water services on the property, as well as some storm sewer main from 5th Avenue going up to the property, because I believe there is an issue that engineering is dealing with on this street, which is separating the storm sewer from the sanitary sewer. Yeah.
Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very surprised at the amount of feedback that you received on this proposed development. Does the feedback that you received, does this concern you at all on this proposed development? Or do you think these are things that we can work through?
Madam Mayor, so we sent out 90 notices out to surrounding properties and received 15 in response, and that includes emails, visitors to the front counter. And I think these are very common concerns to receive when approaching multifamily development, no matter the location, but particularly in a single family neighborhood. And I believe these are all issues that can be resolved, but I think it's really important to hear people out through a public hearing.
Councillor Corbeil.
Sort of along the same vein, and maybe this is easier or more appropriate for the applicant to answer, but some of the concerns could probably be resolved if that rooftop patio didn't exist. And I know, it's a nice to have, but as far as privacy and the shadowing goes, if the building was slightly lower, it might be a little bit more appropriate for the neighborhood. And I don't know if the applicant looked at that at some point, or why exactly the rooftop patio is there.
So I think the rooftop patio is an opportunity to provide space for residents. When you have such a dense development and you have 6 units in there, it doesn't leave a lot of space on the property for people to engage and gather socially. And so doing that on the rooftop was an opportunity to provide that to residents on a development such as this, though we can discuss with the applicant that as well. I don't believe that was considered during this design, but I can't really speak to that. Only that I know the purpose behind providing the rooftop common areas, just to give people more space, ultimately.
Thank you. I just want to say that I think the rooftop patio is my favorite thing in the design. I think it adds a lot to the quality of life of the people who are going to live in that building. It becomes a gathering space where you can know your neighbors instead of just, having a hallway and maybe a little bit of green space in the yard that you may not ever actually use. I think the rooftop patio is a really great asset to a development like this. So I understand the feedback we've received as well, but I really like the form and character of this application, and I love that it's rental-only housing, and I wondered if that was at our request or the developer's request.
In the creation of the comprehensive development zone, that was a request from staff. Yeah.
Thank you. And I remember the one that we just did recently on, I believe, 5th Avenue as well. Burden 5th was rental only. So I think it's really important to, work these rental only buildings into our community, not all in one area, but, spread throughout as we do start to move toward higher density buildings in, some of our more traditional single families. So I think this is the type of development that looks like it will work really well within this neighborhood. And I think they've done a great job of making it look positive, and I was surprised actually looking at the scale of the buildings next to it, how it really does appear to fit in that way. So understand some concerns coming from neighbors, and I think that when we have a shift in a neighborhood, we will always hear some of that, and some important perspectives there, but I think overall this really fits with what we're trying to achieve, and does a great job of recognizing some of the issues that we are struggling with in terms of housing and some of the issues identified in our housing needs assessment. So overall, I think this is a really positive application for the community. With that, Councillor Haggard, would you like to read the motions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that official community plan amendment number 374738 Athol Street, Rye, bylaw number 5046 be now introduced and read a first time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Haggard, seconded by Councillor Poon. Any more comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, none opposed?
I'd like to move that zoning tax amendment number T31 CD2 comprehensive development multifamily residential infill, 473 Athol Street, bylaw number 5047, be now introduced and read a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
I'd like to move that zoning map amendment number 48473 Athol Street, Rye, bylaw number 5048, be now introduced and read a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried.
I move that official community plan amendment number 37473 Athol Street, Rye, bylaw number 5046 be read a second time.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
I move that zoning tax amendment number T31 CD2 comprehensive development multifamily residential infill 473 Athol Street, bylaw number 5047 be read a second time.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Still seeing no comments on the motion. All in favor? Carried. Any opposed? None opposed.
I move that zoning map amendment number 48473 Athol Street, Rye, bylaw number 5048 be read a second time.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Seeing no comments on the motion. All in favor? Carried. Any opposed? None opposed.
I move that appropriate consultation as required for an official community plan amendment has been undertaken in accordance with Section 475 of the Local Government Act.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any questions on this piece? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, carried.
I move that proposed amending bylaws number 473 Athol Street and number 5046, 5047, and 5048 be advanced to a public hearing on Monday, July the 11th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in City Hall Council Chambers.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and on to the next item from the development planner as well, proposed zoning bylaw map amendment for 5249 Pineo Road.
Right, thank you, Madam Mayor. The next application for consideration by council is at 5249 Pineo Road, and this is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment. So the property in question is, sorry, just getting my head straight after the last application. So 5249 Pineo Road, the applicant is requesting to rezone a portion of the property to enable a future subdivision that would create 2 additional duplex dwellings on 2 additional lots. And that would be a rezoning from RR2 semi-rural residential to R2 1 and 2 family residential. And so here's a map of the property with the proposed subdivision. You can see the 2 properties that are proposed to be created at the rear of the lot, and these would have frontage onto Forest Road, whereas the property is currently addressed off Pineo Road, and that's where the dwelling currently exists. So a public hearing was held on this application on Wednesday, May 11th. Notices were provided to occupants and owners of property within 75 meters of this lot, and no comments were received. There were also no attendees from the public at the public hearing, and we are now bringing it back, of course, for 3rd reading. The application, what it's proposing, these duplex dwellings, on a portion of the property, it is a low density of development compared to the surrounding area. So staff consider that to be compatible, but the property is within a floodplain and a tsunami hazard area. And so they would be required to build according to the city's floodplain bylaw, which has specific elevation requirements to reduce the risk of damage from flooding. So staff's recommendation is that this zoning bylaw amendment at 5249 Pineo Road and amending bylaw 5049 be read for a 3rd time. and that as a part of this process and prior to final adoption by council, that the applicant be required to provide a geotechnical report, a stormwater management plan, a site grading plan, a design and estimate for off-site works, and also that they must receive a preliminary layout review letter from the city's approving officer for the subdivision. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that council has.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Are there questions on this one from council? Seeing none, Councillor Paulson, would you like to read the first motion?
I'd like to move that zoning map amendment number 50, 5249 Pineal Road, Hammer, bylaw number 5049 be read a third time.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
Be it moved that as part of the development process for 5249 Pineal Road, the applicant be required to complete the following before council considers final adoption of bylaw number 5049. Number 1, a geotechnical report. Number 2, stormwater management plan. Number 3, site grading plan. Number 4, design and estimate for required off-site works. And number 5, receive a subdivision preliminary layout review letter from the city's approving officer.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any final comments or questions about any of these requirements? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And on to item number 4 from the development planner, proposed bylaw amendment for 4109 Kendall Avenue. And this is just a final adoption. Does anyone have questions on this, which is the sign for the church? Okay. Seeing none, Councillor Solda, would you like to read this motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that the City of Port Alberni, yeah, that's the right one, I'm just
Yes.
making sure.
Sorry,
Pardon me?
this one right here, signed bylaw.
I move that the sign bylaw amendment number T14109 Kendall Avenue, 7th Day at Entevest Church, bylaw number 5055, be now finally adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer and numbered 5055.
Thank you.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Paulson. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And item number 5 from the Director of Corporate Services, election and assent voting. Twyla.
Right, so I speak to the bylaws. So, as council is aware, as we approach this fall, that marks general local election here in the city of Port Alberni and in BC generally. You will be eligible electors will be going to the polls on that date. So the city in the past has had 2 bylaws that speak to the election, one being the use of automated voting machines and another that talked about number of nominees that a candidate running for the office of either mayor or council would need to have to support their nomination, as well as a number of other items, including how names would appear on the ballot. So what is before you today is a combining of those 2 bylaws that essentially reflect consistency between the 2 that exist, with the biggest factor being the addition of mail ballot voting. City of Port Alberni has never offered that in the past. Having said that, there were, prior to approaching this election, conditions that did exist to electors in order to access mail ballot voting or special voting opportunities. So new in 2022 is the removal of those restrictions. And those restrictions were more those that were perhaps physically disabled, illness, in hospital, etc., or going to be absent on general voting day. With the removal of those limitations, mail ballot voting is open to all eligible electors. So with that said, and with the addition of allowing that as an opportunity for eligible electors this year, the bylaw has been amended to remove special voting opportunities. And there is a footnote in the report that spoke to those that have taken advantage of that in the past. Have been a total of 51 at all the locations. So those locations were like Echo, Fur Village, and the hospital. So, as I said, with the addition of the mail ballot voting, that does present all those opportunities for any eligible elector to take advantage of a mail ballot. So we've removed the special voting. And the other change that is proposed in the bylaw that's presented this afternoon is use of the provincial voters list versus same-day registration. Now, same-day registration or using the provincial voters list does not prevent an elector from registering at any of the voting opportunities, nor does it prevent an elector from registering by mail. That is also an option. What it does eliminate is if they are on the provincial voters list, electors are not required to show ID. So that's the step that's eliminated. Anytime they go to one of the polling stations for the upcoming election, they can register. So if they have 2 pieces of ID. So it doesn't eliminate any registration opportunities either. So the bylaw is presented for 3 readings today for council to consider. I encourage council to proceed with those 3 readings, noting the bylaw needs to be adopted by July 4th in order to be applicable for the election this fall.
Thank you. Would you mind just expanding on, because we have previously done the special voting opportunities at Echo for Park Hospital. I understand it wasn't hugely subscribed, but if people who are living in those places are not able to make it to polls physically or choose not to, how will they get their mail-in ballot? How far in advance will they have to consider that? If somebody wants a mail-in ballot the day of the election, are they able to get that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I can expand. So for example, if somebody were to find themselves in the hospital the day of general voting, they could send somebody to obtain a mail ballot for them on their behalf. So you could basically right up to the day request and receive a mail ballot package, and you can have somebody, if you were incapable of attending to the location to vote, you can send somebody to pick that up on your behalf. I should also expand on, we offer curbside voting as well, and now that's just standard. You don't even need a special voting opportunity to allow for curbside voting. So if somebody is able to drive an individual to the voting station, we will come out and bring a person a ballot so that they can complete. Does that elaborate enough?
It does, thank you. Councillor Solta.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify this, the mail-in voting, so I don't want to come to City Hall, I can do a mail-in vote. I have problems with that. I have no problems with facilities, the senior facilities. I have no problems with people that are in-house that are afraid to come out of the house. There's people that just don't go out into the outside world. There's people that are ill that cannot come out of their house, and I know from previous past, from talking to people, they just couldn't get out. They just aren't able to do that. I have no problems with people doing their voting if they're going to be leaving the community and stuff like that. But, I mean, if you're able to move around, you should be able to come and vote in person. And maybe with just, they're afraid to come out because of COVID and stuff like that. Okay, I mean, it's that kind of world right now, but I think people should be able to come out and vote if they really want to. I've been a big supporter about having people that are with disabilities and they can't get out of their house, or they just don't go out to the outside world because of some kind of illness. And I've always pushed for that. But those who can should be able to come out in person and vote. That's my only thing on this whole thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions? Councillor Paulson and then Councillor Haggard.
Just once again to allay any fears that people may have with regard, and I have this question about mail-in voting. How do we in fact ensure that the mail-in vote is used by that person?
So that's where I come in. There's definitely a process that's laid out, and I've captured that in the bylaw. The other caveat is it's always the voter's responsibility. They are signing a declaration. So they are stating that it is they who are completing the ballot. they're not being influenced, et cetera, et cetera. So the onus, a lot of the onus is put on the voter that's completing the ballot, but they are signing a declaration. So, you know, it lies with them when they complete that. But things that are being submitted, of course, there's going to be a process that will be reviewed, that ballot is then accepted as well. But yes, we do put the faith in our electorate, and with them signing the declaration, they are making that statement that they're not being influenced or nobody's assisting.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I disagree. I think anything that we can do to help people vote, more people come out and vote that day. I think we should try and give everybody a voice. Not everybody has the time or the opportunity to come out and vote on election day. And mail-in ballots is not something new. It's been around for many, many, many years, and it's used in other countries. So it's very popular. It's proven, and I think we should support this initiative. Thank you.
Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to put the director on, but what was our turnout last year? Like, to the polls, was, like, they haven't been that.
Thank you. We have that information on the website, which I should add that we have updated the website to reflect 2022 information. I apologize. I have not gone back and looked at the voter turnout for 2018. That was about a year ago when I recall looking. So was it? It's under 50, 45, 40, okay, 45.
I recall about 40, but I'm just thrilled that this might increase voter turnout.
Absolutely. And
45.6. Thank you. I just want to say that I voted by mail for our last federal election. You know, four kids is a lot of kids to get out of the house. And it was a really easy process, and I was really thankful to have the opportunity. I don't think that we are going to see an overwhelming amount of people utilizing this, but I would agree. I think anyone who would like to vote should vote. And I don't think we're going to take away, and I know that's not at all what you're saying, Councillor Solda, but I don't think we're going to take away from the people who would go and vote in person. What we're doing is just offering an opportunity for people who can't get there for whatever reason, and recognizing that people are in, you know, there's a lot of different circumstances that may make it challenging for you to get out and vote on that day in person. So it just adds another opportunity, but I don't think we're going to see an overwhelming amount of people vote in person.
Sorry, and I should be fair in commenting about there is timing challenges that could arise when it comes to mail ballot voting. So just to be open and transparent, by the time nomination period closes and papers are submitted and you actually have your candidates, that's the time then that we turn it around and ballots are ordered. So they need to be printed, received here at the city, and then ran and tested. So we try to make our mail ballots available as quickly as possible, realizing that the deadline for anybody who takes advantage of that opportunity needs to have it back to the chief election officer before 8 o'clock on Saturday, October 15th. So there can be very tight timelines to turn that around. Now, we will not provide the postage for people to return their ballots, but we do give them options. We get it to them as quickly as possible. They can pick up, they can hand deliver it back, they can use courier service. So we will, make efforts so that we can get that turned around in a timely fashion.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
So my quick question is, mail ballots, how do they get them then? Are they mailed to everyone? And the other one, is there going to be drop boxes?
Yeah, so no drop boxes are used for mail ballots. Typically, people have to request how they would like to receive their ballot. There is an application process that an elector will have to complete in order to obtain one, and it's in that process that they let staff know how they would like to receive it. So it could be by mail, it could be by courier. They could schedule somebody to pick it up on their behalf, or they can pick it up themselves.
So just to clarify, so they're not going to get it in the mail like we did with the election, and federal election or provincial?
Not in the absence of submitting an application to us asking for one. So it's not like it would be automatic that we're taking mail ballots and sending them out to the community. They have to ask for a mail ballot package.
So they just have to make a call.
They need to make a call, but they have to complete an application.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Washington.
More curious than anything. So the ballot they get by mail, is it actually capable of being read by your machine, or do you have to manually?
No, it's capable to be read by the machine.
Thank you. Councillor Washington, would you like to read the motions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the City of Port Alberni election and assent voting bylaw number 5054, 2022 be now introduced and read a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Seeing no additional comments or questions, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
That the City of Port Alberni election and assent voting bylaw number 5054, 2022 be read a second time.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
And that the City of Port Alberni election and assent voting bylaw 5054, 2022 be read a third time.
Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Seeing no comments on the motion. Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And moving on to item number 6 from the Director of Corporate Services, Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So before council is the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy bylaw, and staff are requesting that council consider granting that bylaw 3 readings. The reason that it's being brought forward at this particular time is probably to reflect the recent change in legislation where we are now able to charge a application fee of $10. This $10 fee is outside of the fees associated with a formal request for access to records, which the Act and the regulations speak to. The other change is the fact that it has been some time since the City of Port Alberni implemented this bylaw. It goes back to 1994 when the Act was first brought in, and since that time there's been a number of amendments and introduction of the regulation that speaks to the charges and a variety of other things. The bylaw also has been worded to grant the Director of Corporate Services the role of head in administering the Act and treating access requests, and appoints the Deputy City Clerk as the coordinator.
Councillor Solda.
And thank you, Madam Mayor. So the only change in that is just the $10 fee. Is that correct?
Essentially, that is correct. The $10 fee, assigning the corporate officer as the head. New is the assigning the deputy city clerk as the coordinator. And I should expand on, it's given the head and the coordinator the ability to address access requests if they should be received because of work of council committees. So any committees of council, commissions, if a request were to come in, it would be the Director of Corporate Services as the head and the Deputy Clerk addressing those access requests as well on behalf of council.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Solda, would you like to read these?
Madam Mayor, I move that the City of Port Alberni Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy bylaw number 5050, 2022 be now introduced and read a first time.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Seeing no comments on the motion, all in favor? Carried, none opposed.
I'll move that the City of Port Alberni Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy bylaw number 5050, 2022 be read a second time.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. On the motion, all in favor? Carried. Any opposed? None opposed.
And C, Madam Mayor, I move that the City of Port Alberni Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy bylaw number 5050, 2022 be read a third time.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Okay, on to correspondence for action. Item number 1 is a letter dated June 2nd, 2022 from the Alberni District Fall Fair Association requesting council's authorization to host a Friday night market. Are there any questions on this from council? Councillor Corbeil.
Not a question, but a comment. I think this is a tremendous idea, and I think we should, the city and the Fall Fair Association and maybe any other interested stakeholders should sit down and think of opportunities to better utilize those properties there. You know, they're used for the Fall Fair weekend, they're used a little bit during the toy run, but an awful lot of that property is extremely underutilized. So anytime we can do something out there, I think it's a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, Councillor Poon, would you like to read this motion?
Yes, I just have one question as well. Will there be an entry fee to this market, or is it going to be a free event?
The letter, sorry, Madam Mayor, the letter speaks to free, but they will accept donations.
Okay, I'll move that council authorize the Alberni District Fall Fair Association to host a Friday night market on July 22nd, 2022 at 4090 Hollywood Street, Fall Fairgrounds, from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., subject to confirmation that ADFFA has received an approved special events permit from the LCRB, ADFFA providing notification of the event to emergency services and BC Transit, provision of standard liability insurance in the amount of $5 million minimum.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Seeing no more comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And item number 2, a request for council to authorize the Port Alberni Fantastic Sports Society Okie Dokie Slow Pitch Tournament. Any questions on this piece? Councillor Haggard.
Not a question, but a comment. I'm just so thrilled to see these events happening again this year. This is great. This is one of my favorite events to go to through the year. Thanks.
Thank you. And if you'd like, you could read the motion.
I'd like to move that council authorize the Port Alberni Fantastic Sports Society to host the Okie Dokie Slow Pitch Tournament to include a concert and beer garden taking place July 1st to July 3rd, 2022 at various city locations, including Echo Park Ball Fields, Majors and Minors, Russell Fields, Bob Davies Stadium, and fields subject to confirmation that PAFSS has received an approved special event permit from the LCRB, PAFSS providing notification of the event to emergency services and BC Transit, provision of standard liability insurance in the amount of $5 million minimum.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Washington. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. And on to proclamations from the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance. We have an email dated May 26, 2022 requesting a proclamation for Island Good Days. Does everyone know what Island Good is? Because it's a newer initiative. Maybe.
I think it's just promoting things that are made.
Yeah, so they've created kind of like a logo and design about island-made products, and they're trying to encourage, food producers and all types of different producers to promote themselves as island good. And they've got a promotion for restaurants to promote when they're using island good products as well. So it's a great initiative that the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance has been spearheading over the last couple of years. Okay. Councillor Solda, would you like to read this one?
Madam Mayor, I move that, where am I going here?
It's top of the page, item.
Yep.
Proclamation.
There we go. I move that the council proclaim the week of June 26, 2022 as Island Good Days in the city of Port Alberni.
Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And correspondence for information, Twyla.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I am pleased to inform Council that with the success of the city's application to have property removed from the ALC, we did receive confirmation from the Compliance and Enforcement Officer that their files have now been closed as it relates to any complaints that they had received with regarding that property and its use. We also have correspondence from Island Health, and again, extending appreciation to the city for working with them to support a mobile test or a drive-through testing facility while we found ourselves in the throes of COVID for roughly a couple of years. We have communications from Broombusters giving an update as to progress they've been making, but also encouraging council once again to bring this to the attention of UBCM, especially in light of hydro right-of-ways and things of that location. We have a communication from Leslie Walerius that had been directed to the Audit Committee, and Audit Committee's request that it be placed on Council's agenda under correspondence for information. We have a letter from the province, which is speaking to safety improvements that they will be going ahead with at the Cathedral Grove location. And then we have minutes from the Museum and Heritage Commission.
Thank you. Any items of correspondence councillors would like to speak to or ask questions about? Councillor Paulson.
I just want to say the Agricultural Land Commission letter is such a welcome letter to receive and finally put that particular thing to bed. And also the Cathedral Grove safety improvements, although they're small in nature, is a great start, and I'm sure we'll see better things in the future for Cathedral Grove as well.
Yeah, thank you. And it's really nice to see some safety improvements being made. I know that there are grander plans for Cathedral Grove in the works and being run through various ministries, but just want to recognize our MLA, Josie Osborne, because I know that she has been really advocating for improvements there, specifically, some more immediate steps to be taken. So this isn't the final plan, obviously, but nice to see some improvements being made. As we know, when we're driving through there in the summer, it can be very dangerous for pedestrians. So it's a great start. Councillor Solda.
Just a quick thought there. June 20th to June 30th, expect delays when you're going. Leave early.
Thank you. Any other items? Okay, seeing none. No report from in camera. We'll move on to council reports. Any items councillors would like to speak to? Councillor Washington and then Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to give a huge shout out to the Chamber for the award banquet they had this past Friday. It was nice and airy so that people could get together, and it was just nice to get together, actually. And congratulations to all the award winners. It was 3 years worth, and they had to run them through really good, but the whole crew did an excellent job, and very proud to be from Port Alberni that night.
Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't have time to do a written report, but I just wanted to let the community know the mayor and I just returned from Regina last week for our National Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference. And I shout out to the people of Regina. Everybody was so friendly. They were just great hosts. Learned a lot at the workshops, and so I'll be giving that in a report next meeting. And also, one morning when we didn't have anything planned, the mayor and I did a working walk around the waterfront walkway in Regina. We got lots of notes and lots of ideas, and hopefully going to incorporate some of that in our waterfront in the coming years. Thanks.
Absolutely. Can I put you on the spot and ask you what your favorite session was? What was the most valuable session you attended?
The one I enjoyed the most, it talked about having a inclusive and diverse community. I don't know if the speakers are so engaging or if it was the topic, but I think that was one of my favorite sessions.
That's great. Mine was, I attended a housing workshop on different types of affordable housing, everything from affordable rentals to affordable home ownership. And there was a portion of it was inclusionary zoning in a slow growth city. And City of Port Alberni is probably not a slow growth city anymore. But, we have been in the past. And so some of these concepts that, other municipalities that are growing very, very quickly have used in the past to make sure that they, get the right number of rentals and get the right number of affordable housing projects haven't necessarily jived with where our community is at in terms of what, we were realistically able to ask for. So it was really interesting to hear different approaches. It was actually focused around the city of Winnipeg. City of Winnipeg's growth rate was 0.8 up to 1.2% per year, and so that is a slow growth city. I think the provincial average is like 4 or 5%, and so I think we were 3% or something like that. So, anyways, it was a really interesting session talking about how even if you are not a very quickly growing municipality, there's still ways to have requirements around the right type of housing that you want and not be just so discouraging that you don't get development. So it was very much about balance, and they talked about different programs that they had to incentivize developers for affordable rentals and affordable home ownership options. And yeah, anyway, so that session is actually captured online. So I thought about going back and watching it again because it was so valuable. And I would encourage everyone to as well. I'll try to find the link to it because I know Councillor Paulson attended online as well and didn't have instant access to all of the workshops. So it was a very good session. Any other items councillors would like to highlight from reports? Councillor Paulson.
I just want to bring up something that I've not enjoyed, but I really took notice of, and the stuff that I could attend, was actually the direct address from the Mayor of Kyiv to FCM, and he was extremely articulate and well-spoken, and just talking about the things that they're going through in the Ukraine at this point in time. And I guess for me, just to restate concern over what's going on in the Ukraine. And I was very emotionally moved by his address.
It was emotional.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson. Okay, Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I unfortunately had a personal issue to deal with, so I was unable to attend the AGM of the Alberni Valley Community Forests, and Councillor Paulson did attend, and I believe he received a dividend check for $300,000 for the city. So again, thank you very much to the Community Forest for all their hard work and for their dividend.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Paulson, for attending. I'd love to invite the Community Forest to a council meeting to present that as well, so that we can thank them for all the work that went into that. Okay, seeing no more items to bring forward in reports, we will go to question period. This is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of council. Come on forward, Neil.
Thank you. Wasn't my intention to get up here today, but there's a number of items I can't help but try and address. Put my glasses on. On the mailbox voting, I can't disagree more. I just look at some of the problems that's occurred in other across the border, although there's a whole lot of problems there. I don't think that, and I agree with Councillor Solder, people have to take responsibility to come out once every 4 years, get up off their butts and come out and vote. We're making it far too easy for people to not involve themselves in the business of the council. I've mentioned this to our mayor before, that sometimes I don't think we're promoting the fact that people should be coming to these meetings as much as we should. We're actually discouraging them by saying you can communicate in various ways, writing letters, emails, etc. Well, a lot of time, a letter or an email goes from the sender to the receiver, and we don't often know what those letters are. But the bottom line, to keep it short, I could talk longer than that, we're not encouraging people to attend. It's not asking too much if you want a vibrant community that's working well and helpful to, well, it's partly the councils, not just this council. We should be encouraging the people to be here. And that's a step further in excluding people from that close contact with council. You don't have to go out and vote. Send in and we'll send you a piece of paper and you can sign it and send it back. And I'm sorry, but I don't have the faith I'm sorry, Port Alberni's a nice place, a lot of good people that take a lot of interest, but they should physically come out and do these things. I don't have the confidence in a lot of we vote politically more than we do in who we think is going to do a good job. And in that respect, I don't have the confidence in a lot of the electorate who vote in that manner. So I'm totally against it. We're just dividing the membership from the councils again and to another small degree. So I guess I could have found a question here, don't I? So, yeah, okay, very, very, thank you. Wow. And number 2, the $10 fee is am I correct in saying that the people who will make a decision on whether, if I wanted a Freedom of Information request and I paid my $10 and sent it in, I just want clarification if I may, the Director of Corporate Services and the coordinator would then have the right to decide whether my request was going to be provided to me or whether they were going to deny that request. Am I understanding that properly?
I think Twyla is definitely best to answer that.
It certainly isn't for myself or the coordinator to deny the request. The application fee is used as a means of encouraging requests and individuals that are making those requests serious in the nature of submitting them. A lot of times people will submit because it's very convenient. It's not up to myself in that role or the coordinator then to determine if it qualifies. Once that $10 fee is received, we will process the applications in accordance with the Act.
And who approves it or not?
There's nothing to approve.
So
We would be
automatically go through.
we are automatically, it's just the application, the request itself would now accompany a $10 fee. Once that fee is received and paid, we process the request accordingly.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And, okay, that's answered that. Federation of Labor. Could I just have a very brief outline of what took place under the motions regarding old age pension and seniors? And did either one of our representatives speak up on the motion when it came forward at the convention floor?
That is a Union of British Columbia Municipalities motion. The process for Federation of Canadian Municipalities is very different. They actually only take 4 resolutions each year from across the country. So that motion and those motions get submitted a year in advance. And they exclude most of them. So Federation of Canadian Municipalities is not the most effective place for resolutions to come forward, but the resolution from the City of Victoria is coming to UBCM this September.
Okay, so I'm just getting mixed up there. I'm thinking of the UBCM. Right.
It would be more appropriate at Federation of Canadian Municipalities because it is a federal issue. They just have a very different process.
I understand. So I'll ask the question in a few months. Why not? I want to be careful how I word this because for 2 years now I've been bringing up an issue forward here time and time again, and I've had a hard time getting answers to questions, and there's only one question I want left to be answered, and I brought that up at a meeting I had with you, Mayor Minions and Scott Smith and I think Cindy and Councillor Haggart and Councillor Solder were there. And I have mentioned that I wanted an answer to this question. And so I'd like through yourself to ask this one question. What I want to do, I'm sick and I'm tired of hearing myself standing up here, bringing up the same questions, and just getting little bits of answers over a period of 2 years that I join together and say, okay, I'm satisfied that I've got an idea what's going on. So if through yourself, if I don't mind, it's only one question. I'm not going to involve the councillor in a lot of things. One question pertaining to the one thing that I've got. Councillor Poon called me one time 2 years ago, I think it was, Councillor Poon or something. We had a very brief conversation because I didn't want to get into details at that point with not knowing who was on the phone or who wasn't, and vice versa, I guess. But I came out and I asked Councillor Poon who the subcontractor that did the plumbing. And she didn't hesitate. She told me who it was. 2 years, and I'm still trying to get that answer from council and staff. And Councillor Poon did not hesitate. She told me who it was, and I will not divulge the name. I don't think it's right. And so I can't go any further than that. So I guess my question is, am I right in saying that that depicts the conversation, part of the conversation we had, Councillor Poon? That's correct. Okay, and last one. Did members of council or staff ask you that same question? Don't it? Well, I want you to answer the question, not Mayor Minions shaking her head. See, Mayor Minions might not have known if Mr. Ply. So they never asked you that question. Never asked you the question as to who your subcontractors were. Well, that's, as Mr. Smith had said the other day, when you apply for a permit, they want to know who and you're taking the permit out for the sub-trades as well. They want to know who the sub-trades are.
Yeah, go ahead and turn your microphone
I would
on.
certainly tell the building department, but that's not something I need to tell my council colleagues.
Okay, and that's fair enough. I said council or staff. So you had told the building department who those contractors were.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
I think that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Would any other members of the public like to ask a question?
That's all my secrets. You won't learn much.
Joseph, were you coming up?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Joseph Laskosic, and I live at 4381 Princess Road, Port Alberni. I've got a couple questions, but I think I'll leave them alone for today. The only one I would like to really know, there's a couple ones I thought were good, but I'm going to leave them. The only one I'm concerned about, or would like to know, I moved here prior to the last council and mayor election from another part of the island, and something that was available and that they did at that time was you had an opportunity to go and listen and ask questions of those that were running for mayor and council at the time. And so there was a weekly thing, and you could go and sit down and ask questions. A great opportunity. There were some great questions asked. My vote was based on some of those things that I saw, those presentations of the individuals that were running for mayor and council. And I'm just curious if that's something that's going to happen again for this year. Will it be that opportunity for people to hear from, I know perhaps some of you will be running again. And so I've kind of got an idea of where you're, what you'd be like as mayor and council. But there might be others that are running that'll be new that I know nothing about, and some other people in the community that might be new that might want to know and learn who they're voting for. So, yeah, is that something that's going to take place this year?
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great question and a great idea for it to be formalized. I think that's not something that the city would intend to run on our own. However, the Chamber of Commerce in the past has done, they've pretty much handled like the all candidates evenings. And I think it would be a great suggestion to them to host a weekly sit down. I know candidates have done that themselves as well. Like I last time had an every week sit down opportunity. Yeah, but I would love to see it formalized. So the Chamber of Commerce, I think, would be a great start on that. And if not, then maybe candidates themselves could organize a collaborative thing.
So it was the chamber that organized that.
Yes.
That's correct. I'd forgotten that, so thanks for reminding me of that.
No problem. Thank you. Okay. Would any other members of the public like to ask questions? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move adjournment? Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon, all in favor. Carried, thank you.